of what is going on in this city. It didn't just start. This has been going on since the late 90s. Let's be real. How many people remember the late 90s when all of our friends were being evicted? How many people remember all the people with AIDS who got evicted from the Castro during the late 90s? How many people remember the guy who was in the final stages of AIDS on a respirator and the landlord served him with an eviction notice because he could not wait for him to die to evict him? How many people remember that? That's the kind of shameful shit that has been going on for almost 20 years in this city. And what has City Hall done about it? What?
Nothing!
More than nothing. They've been complicitors by their silence and their inaction. It is absolutely immoral and unacceptable that our politicians have done nothing while our neighborhoods were decimated, while our friends were thrown out, while people died on the streets in this city. You know, it's really great that Supervisor Wiener came here today, but the reality is there's been a crisis in this neighborhood for years. When he took office, there was a crisis. Not long after he took office, a gay man died on the streets between 18th and 19th Street on Castro. He died homeless. And what was the response from Wiener's office?
Nothing!
Nothing. In fact, what was the response from the mainstream LGBT community? Nothing. It is shameful, folks. We have to not only hold them accountable, we have to shame the crap out of them. These folks are guilty of the heinous crime of allowing us to be evicted, of allowing people to be homeless and to die in our streets. That's what they're guilty of. And I'm not going to mince words about it anymore, because I'm sick and tired. We sent a message a couple weeks ago at the Lee family house. We got the mayor of this city to finally do something about evictions, and for him to call the landlord and to ask for a delay in that eviction. We did that! Us! Let's give ourselves a round of applause. It wasn't the politicians. It wasn't the mayor. It wasn't the democratic process. It was we, the people, saying enough. Woo! We, the people, just a week ago, we, the people, are stopping an eviction. 3 buildings on Market Street, 1005, 1049, and 1067. A speculator and his investment group have bought those properties. They're all artists. They're all low income. And they're all facing eviction. 180 units of housing. And you know what we did? We shamed the city into doing something. And suddenly the city came up with a solution. But why? Not because they wanted to come up with a solution, but because we made them. We, the people. Seriously, folks, we have got the power when we exercise it. We did it with the Lee family. We're doing it on Market Street. And we're going to do it here. Goddamn investors from outside this city are going to come into the Castro and evict Jeremy. Right? Come on, are you with me or not?
Yeah!
And like Ted said, when they come for Jeremy, we're going to be here, standing here in front of this door. And we're not going to let anybody remove Jeremy. Because if we let one more person in our neighborhoods be evicted, then we're going to be the shameful ones. Okay? And let me just finish by saying what we need in the LGBT community. I'm going to be specific right now because, you know, lots of communities are rising up, and it's great. As David Campos said, the mission rose up last week. The mission's been fighting. Soma's fighting. Lots of neighborhoods are fighting back, and it's great. I want to see our community, LGBT community. I live here in the Castro. I want to see us rise up. I want to see a Stonewall. Stonewall 2. And Stonewall 2 this time is not going to be about police abuse like it was in 1969. It's going to be about economic justice. It's going to be about the fact that the LGBT movement has yet to address homelessness and poverty within our own community, and that is shameful. But we're going to make it happen because somebody, some speculator, just like the cops and that hot night in June of '69, they pushed the Queens a little too far. Well, some speculator who's going to come along, and he's going to push the Queens a little too far, and they're going to do what they've done countless times in histories, whether it was Compton's or Stonewall, and they're going to fight back. And I want to be there when that queen tosses the first brick. I want to be there, and maybe I'll be that queen. Because you know what? It's got to happen. And when that happens, Human Rights Campaign and Equality California and all those other goody-goody groups that want to assimilate us into nice, respectable straight people, they're going to have to pay attention and change their ways. Because homelessness is a queer issue. Housing is a queer issue. Addiction is a queer issue. And they better start learning that now.
It was about 1,200 petitions that have been filed since 1997. There are about 4,000 units represented by these petitions, and who knows how many people live in each unit, but there are thousands of people that no longer live in their homes because, you know what, we've let that happen, and we need to stop letting that happen right here, right now, in the Castro, in the Mission, in Chinatown, all over San Francisco. We need to join forces with the other community groups that are rallying against this, and we need to show up for their events. They need to come to ours, and this needs to build in mass. We need to take it to City Hall. We need to take it to the state. We need to not stop here. It's only beginning. You know what? There have been 100 petitions filed against seniors and people with disabilities over the last 3 years. That's 100 petitions. Who knows how many people have been displaced that are disabled or senior because we've let the Ellis eviction or the Ellis Act work to evict us. No more. This has got to stop. And you know what else? A lot of the people who are evicting San Francisco residents don't live in San Francisco.
Right.
You know, of the 100 petitions filed against seniors and folks with disabilities, we have LLCs that have formed based out of Texas, based out of Colorado, based out of Delaware, based out of Maryland, people who have probably never even been to San Francisco, displacing the heart of San Francisco. And you know what, displacing subaltern communities, displacing communities of color, queer communities, disabled communities. And you know what, they're just doing it to make a buck, and they're doing it because we're letting them, and we have to stop.
Woo!
Enough is enough. One of the campaigns that Eviction Free San Francisco is working on is against a speculator, an investment company called Urban Green. We call them Urban Greed. They've got 140 units in San Francisco, and they are displacing residents from 5 different buildings, including a woman named Mary, who is going to be evicted on her 98th birthday. Are we the kind of city that evicts people on their 98th birthday? Hell no.
Hell no!
Hell no.
Hell no!
We gotta fight for Mary to be able to stay in her apartment. We have to fight for Jeremy to be able to stay in his apartment. If we're gonna sit here and let our seniors be displaced, that says that, you know, we don't care about our seniors. That says that we are not the kind of community that I want to live in, that you want to live in, and we've got to build this. This is not okay. This is not okay. And you know what? I came to San Francisco because as a queer person, I needed particular healthcare services that I can only access through Healthy San Francisco by living in San Francisco.
Right.
If I'm evicted and have to move to the East Bay and continue waves of gentrification there, I'm not going to be able to access vital healthcare services that I need. If Jeremy is displaced and has to leave his house, he's also not going to be able to access particular healthcare services. That is like killing the queer community, literally.
Yep.
Not even figuratively. Losing your place of residence in San Francisco is not just, oh, let me go find a new place in the East Bay. It's losing healthcare services, and we cannot let that happen. Enough is enough. We have a couple of residents who live in Urban Green properties that I think want to talk a little bit about their stories. Actually, they will tell about their stories in a minute. Carmen's going to. I'm sorry.
Woo! Thank you, Eric!
I'm so inspired by everybody who's spoken so far. It's absolutely incredible. And if Tommy's gonna throw the first brick, I'll be the queen to throw the second brick. And I'm confident that the whole Ivy Milk Club will be right behind me in that. If not, we'll be tying little flowers to your bayonets, depending on your style. But it's time to fight. I'm obviously here on behalf of the Harvey Milk Club. Let me start by saying how honored all of us are to be a part of this fight. We're here today on behalf of Jeremy Michaels, who has fought tirelessly over the last year to stop his own eviction, but who has also publicized the effect of the Ellis Act on seniors and on people with disabilities, and for that I want to just give Jeremy Michaels a huge thank you. Bring it back to Jeremy. When so many people are being forced from their homes, we need people who will stand strong against the evictions like Jeremy has. It is too easy to roll over and be shoved out of your home, and we need people to stand up and fight, and people who will inspire the rest of us to fight. So thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy. And while we're here on behalf of Jeremy today, we're here on behalf of the entire LGBT population, which comprises, as Campos was mentioning, a grossly disproportionate amount of our homeless population in this city, and that is unacceptable. We're here on behalf of Calle 24 and all of our city's working class and Latino families facing eviction. For everybody who was out last week to that, thank you. We are here on behalf of the Lee family, all families of color who are facing eviction, and indeed ourselves, because if you're not facing eviction right now, you're living in fear that you will be the next person on the chopping block. We all live in that fear, and it is time to turn that fear into strength. And it is time to turn that strength into a fight. We need to fight back. So I'm obviously here from a younger generation. I was 10 years old when this all began. I don't remember the things that Tommy was talking about, but I do know the level of inspiration that I feel right now is more than I've been felt in my entire life. And you know what that means to me? Something is happening. This is a critical mass that is happening. It's not just San Francisco we're fighting for. We're fighting for New York, which is facing its worst homelessness problem since the Great Depression. We're here on behalf of hunger strikers in Vancouver. We're in protests in Berlin. We have reports of protests in El Barrio. Around the globe, people are rising up against the tides of gentrification on behalf of working class people that are being shoved out of our urban centers. And yes, it is a civil rights battle. Housing is a human right, a fundamental human right. So while we stand here today at Jeremy's home in San Francisco, in this neighborhood, we are part of a global discussion, and let our voices be heard worldwide. I look to all of you for inspiration, and I look to Jeremy for inspiration. We must continue to fight. We will continue to fight for you, Jeremy. I will be here. I will be here the day that they come to take your home away from you, and we will stop them.
For your housing, for tenants throughout the city. Like the speaker before me said, there really is something happening. The Lee family eviction was the most grassroots direct action I've felt around tenant rights in a long time. I feel so proud that we stopped the eviction that day, that the Lees have a chance to find other housing, but the work doesn't stop here. Every single rent-controlled unit that we lose is lost forever. That is the heart and soul of how we house people, how we house low-income, working class, immigrants, LGBT community, everyone that we care about that makes the city really great. So in addition to working at CCDC, I sit on the City Planning Commission, and so this Thursday, I want to invite everyone to come help support Avalos' legislation. He has legislation to say that any unit that has had a no-fault eviction, tenants being evicted of no fault of their own, will not be able to demolish the unit, merge the unit, or convert the unit. So I believe that is what every single little step. We need to take all of this direct action work, but we also need to try at every level, every policy level, every possible piece of legislation. In addition, there's legislation to allow tenants who are evicted to come to the top of the wait list for new affordable housing opportunities. I know that's not a perfect world, but at least then we can help people like Jeremy who are willing to stand up to stay in the city. So thanks again for everyone for coming out today.
Get a quick number. And what it means is that number 32 can be eliminated along with number 64 and replaced by number 12,846, etc., etc., etc. It creates in me a sense of fatalism. I've been at the house and often I hear different It's the demolition beginning. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about now. Wait a second, give me a minute.
Replaced by number 12,432.
Oh yes, we're all numbers. We're all in the tech world now. We're all numbers. And it gives me a sense of fatalism, and that I've heard many opinions from a lot of different people I've talked to about what's happening with the evictions. It's really a very 21st century situation in San Francisco. I came here in the 60s and it was quite different then, but now it's high tech and thin people. I am being evicted, so the whole thing is kind of stressful. But anyway, I don't know if I'm going to be evicted or not, so I'm just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen over there. And I've talked to many people about their opinions, and a lot of people, some people say to me, they say, why don't you just get the fuck out? Nobody expects the landlord to support you for the rest of your life. I've heard that opinion. I've also heard the opinion, this is from the owner, Urban Green, this isn't personal. It's business. I've heard that opinion. And then other opinions I've heard, the ones I hear here. I talked to a supervisor. They don't know what to do. It's a huge thing. They're doing a little tiny bit, gratefully. I was surprised to see Scott Wiener here. My God.
Yeah.
What drug was she on? But it's good. It's better to have somebody as a friend than an enemy, don't you think? I mean, really, in a way. I hated him for so long. I used to walk nude in the Castro, and they declared it a disaster area. Anyway, I'm just going on. I'll sum it up by saying the only thing I really think is that I don't have an answer for these evictions. These situations, it's an economic war. It's like a huge country taking over a little tiny country, and what do? Another opinion I heard was that we need $1 billion trust fund to deal with these evictions. So the only thing I can think of, it's a war. Well, we may not win it, but perhaps there is a chance we could win a revolution.
Woo!
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to speak to you.
But thank you all for coming out today. It is so beautiful to see so many people, even with the BARD strike, who were able to come out here. And I'm someone who grew up in San Francisco, and then I've been living in my place on Dolores. I've been living in the Mission for over 20 years and living on my place in Dolores for about 15. And my neighbor across the hall and I are just like family. She doesn't really have any other family, and certainly not in California. And she is 97.
Woo!
She's so cute. I wish she were here today. She'd be so pleased. And so one of the things that I was really struck by is that it never even occurred to me that I could be a public school teacher in San Francisco, but get to the point where I can no longer live in the city where I grew up. And so I agree with that. That is a shame. But even more so, I thought to myself, here is a woman who has lived in my apartment building since it was built. She has lived there for 50 years. She knew the original owners. She knew the owner's children. She knew the other 50 people who came after them and the banks that owned it, and now good old Urban Greed. And so each time she says to me, well, it just can't get worse, can it? And I think, unfortunately, it turns out it can, which is amazing. And so one of the things that I look at when I look at her is that she is someone who she just wants to be able to pass in her own apartment. That's all she wants. She doesn't care about money. She's like, I will pay them more. They deserve to make a living from the apartment. She is so kind, and I'm like, these people do not deserve your kindness. And she, despite that, is incredibly generous and kind and is like, I would totally pay more. It makes sense that they want to make some money from the apartment. That sounds great for them. And I was like, do you know they're trying to evict you? She's like, they are? That is terrible. So they are trying to evict a woman who is turning 98 the week they are trying to evict her. She is trying to pay them a better rent so that they will be happy, not so she doesn't get evicted, but because she thinks that's right. And they, in the meantime, are going to evict her on her birthday, and she doesn't even remember that it's happening. So I'm here on behalf of Emmy and I. She wants to thank you for coming out. I'm going to show her the picture. She's going to be so excited.
You know what, they maybe if you headquartered in San Francisco, but they're the child company of a company in Colorado, a company that's been reprimanded by the Sierra Club and a bunch of other organizations for doing all sorts of shady shit. And you know what, they're manifesting this greenwashing campaign in San Francisco, pretending that through a particular form of liberalism that they can pass as like good, investment company. But what kind of good investment company would evict a 98-year-old woman? We can't fall for this kind of greenwashing. We can't fall for any of this.
With the Ellis Act, and I was served the notice 3 days before I left on vacation for 2.5 months. I was given 120 days to get out, and I was in Europe during 2.5 months. Because I'm 65 and have lived there so long, I was granted a year to get out, but they are paying me about $8,000 to get out at that time. I am a teacher at City College, and I teach from 9 to 5 every day, and I just don't have the time to look for another place. So I decided to retire at the end of the semester because of this eviction. And my pension from City College after being there for 51 semesters is going to be $543 before taxes. Teachers do not receive Social Security because we get a pension. But 51 semesters and $543 is not something you can live on. So I will be homeless. I will sleep in front of the school I used to teach at, and I'm very upset about this.
The Eviction Defense Collaborative. Amazing work. So we just chose to sit, as Jeremy seems to be doing, in the seat of faith as opposed to the seat of fear, which is what you have to do. And you keep imagining the place where you're going to be, or the services that you're going to be able to receive. Not by being evicted from San Francisco, also my health care. I haven't been able to reestablish it yet, and I desperately need that. And my 12-year-old daughter was evicted also from her home of 8 years, her first and only home that she ever knew. And the new landlord didn't care. He just came to us in February and said, guess what, you're going to have to leave. And because you have a child, we have to do it during the summer. That's supposed to be a protection of us, and I understand why, because they're in school. She was in a K-8 charter school that we managed to get into 7 years ago, and that was our entire life, pretty much. I mean, that was our community, our families, and for her to have to leave that was, as a mom, as a single mom, as her only principal guardian and parent, my heart broke so bad, I can't tell you. And my chosen home, coming here because I wanted to be in a place, am I too close to the mic? It sounds so loud up here.
Great.
Like, oh my God. But so she is so brave, and I got to give it up for Ella Claire Sky Squigger, because she went with it. She trusted us. Deepa came to our aid, and I hope I'm not getting you in trouble at work, Deepa. But we can do so much collectively as a group. A year ago, we couldn't have organized something like this and had so many people here at this time, and from so many different fronts. Now that we are like zooming and doing the web connection psychically Buddhist tangential event organizing, like we can fight this stuff. I'm serious. We have the power.